and welcome to episode number 32 of the BS Bros podcast. You might be wondering, where are the rest of the bros? Where are the other guys? Well, to be honest with you, we had episode 32 up and ready to go. I just didn't feel very comfortable releasing that episode. In the sense of, I didn't feel like it was that great of an episode, and I didn't feel like it was something I would want my name on. So, will that episode come out at some point? Possibly. I hope it does, honestly, but in the sense of wanting to give the best possible kind of content that we want to put out there, I've decided that I'm going to put that aside for now. Like I said, it might come out in the future. But for now, it's just kind of in the bin. And this is the new episode. This is episode 32 of the BS Bros podcast. It's just me, your host, Kirby. Usually I'm joined by the other guys. Joe's, Josh, Isaiah, Punky, Bob, J-Way, Terrell. But it's just me. So I don't know really how this is going to go. But I did at some point want to try to do a solo podcast on my own. So maybe this is a preview of that kind of thing. But you never know. So, yeah, I guess now that that's out of the way and dealt with, I mean, I guess I should kind of talk to you guys about what's going on in my life. Today's Monday, the day before Thanksgiving. Obviously, holidays are starting to ramp up, and it's going to start getting crazy here in the next couple of weeks. Hopefully you have a good Thanksgiving. I know I have plans with my family, so I'm always looking forward to seeing them. I don't know what the other boys have as their plans, but I'm sure we'll discuss that in episode 33. I know 32 is recorded. I might do this again. I don't know how I feel about 33 at the moment. Oh shit, I'm messing up my numbers here. Hold on. This is episode we just uploaded. I should know this, right? This should be something I know already. We already have 31 up. I'm re-recording 32. 33 is already done. So episode 34, you'll hear people talk about what their plans are. Oh, no, wait. You'll hear people talk about what they did for Thanksgiving. Damn, this is a whole freaking mess. Anyway, the point being is there's so much going on in these next few weeks that I'm incredibly excited about. And we'll start with my sister graduating from college. Congratulations to her. She worked very hard to get there, and I'm really excited to go watch her walk across the stage. But even more exciting than that, one that personally we can all relate to, is the fact that Joe's has a kid on the way. And I think we're all excited to see how he handles being a father. So, yeah, I guess we'll just see how that goes. I'm really curious to see how his life's going to change. Is it going to change? Is he going to step up and be a father? Is he going to play God the way that he has been playing? Is he going to disappear? Not meaning that he's not going to be a great father, because he is. It's just more of the sense of, is he going to be able to put the video games down to help out and do that job? Not trying to dig out on him, but, that kind of stuff happens. I believe he would be the kind of guy to drop it and to step up to the plate and be the bigger guy. But you never know. I could be wrong. Aside from that, I've kind of just been going through kind of a little downward spiral recently. Today I spent most of my day kind of just, I go through this whole kind of like an existential crisis thing, where I think like once a month I get too far into my head and I start thinking like deep, dark thoughts. And that kind of, messes with my head a little bit. Sometimes it kind of, puts a damper on my day. And, but, I managed to push past it, to move on. And now here I am, recording this for you guys. This isn't going to be your standard hour-long episode, so if you're looking for that, you probably won't find it. You're better off waiting for the next episode, or even going back and watching an old episode, if that fits your fancy. I'm trying to hit 30 minutes here, but I don't know if I have that much content going on in my life to discuss that kind of stuff for 30 minutes. But like I said, if this is something I want to do in the future, this is something that has to get done in this particular way. This is something that needs to get done. I keep saying and I'm trying not to do it, but it's like something, it's my coping mechanism that helps me think when I'm trying to figure out the next words that I'm going to say. In the sense of me going for I did it again, damn it. In the sense of me going for my existential crisis, I always have this, like, that's going to bug you guys, I know it. It's bugging me. I swear I don't do this all the time when I'm talking normally with the boys. If this is your first episode, this was a bad episode. Go watch the last episode. I'm sure it was much better. But I always have this, like, once a month thing where I just kind of realize that at some point in my life, and I've discussed this on the podcast with the boys, but I don't think I really went into how deep I go with it. So I'm going to kind of go into it a little bit here. This might be triggering for some people. If it is, you're more than welcome to click off the video. I promise you won't hurt my feelings. But I always go through this, like, dark spiral at least, like, once a month or so, where I look around me and I go, at some point this all ends. And it kind of gets me sad, you know. I kind of sit there and I think, at some point in time, I will take my last breath. I will never see my daughters again. I will never see my wife again. And I hope my parents are gone before I am, but you never know. Never see them again. And I will never see my friends again. Most especially. And that sounds kind of like a downer statement, but it's the truth. At some point we all go. And I think the real question that we all need to ask ourselves is, what do we want to leave behind to be remembered by? And I hope that the friendships and the footprints that I've put in other people's lives is enough for people to remember me for who I am. I'm just trying to be a helper in a way, in the sense of I want to bring joy to the hearts of many, or to the few, whatever I can. In fact, that's the whole point of this podcast. It's the BS Bros podcast. The whole point is for us to get together every week and just bullshit around with each other. There are no set topics. We go wherever we feel like going. Whether it's just a session where we sit there and dog on each other for an hour, or it's an episode where we jump into politics. We haven't done that part yet. But you never say never. And I try to get the guys to open up and talk about some dark stuff, because, you know, everybody has dark thoughts. Everybody has them. The real question is, how do you deal with them? Some people just are able to shrug them off and move on. Others, not so much. Me, I'm not one of them. I said this every month. I have this thought. Every month I think about how at some point I will die, and at some point, that's it. That's game over. What comes after this, who knows? I know what I believe. I'm sure you have your beliefs too. But what if it's just black? What if there is nothing to look forward to? That's bad. That's a terrible thing. I believe in a heaven. I believe there's a way, a path to heaven, and I will go there. And I just have to figure out how to get there the best way I can. And I'm choosing to help in And I feel like I'm rambling into like the same words I've already said, but I'm going to continue to try to say them in hopes that somebody understands them. Or maybe I can get to my point in a better way that could make me understand it better. Because like I said, I feel like I'm just rambling in circles here. But I want to help bring joy to people who can't find joy, or people that are having a hard time finding joy. Because we live in a world where there's a lot of negativity. And it seems like every day you turn on the news, you open Facebook, you open up any, social media apps, and all you see is a lot of negativity in this world. And I wanted to change that. I wanted to bring positivity and fun in the best way that I can. And so I feel like that's why we started this podcast. At least that's why I wanted to be a part of this podcast. It allows people to look into the friendship that me and my friends have. We've been together for about 10 years. And we do stupid shit together, but it's all in the name of having fun and getting memories to tell our children when we're older. And I think we've done a good job of getting to make memories together. And now we have things that we can reminisce on. And things that we can laugh about, things that we can mess with each other on, things that we can give each other a good ribbing for. And it's going to be sad to see that go at some point. I know there was a discussion with the boys, kind of like individually, and it might come up as a topic in the future. I don't know for sure, but we discussed who would go first and why we believe they would go first, and like how the group would change after that, because there's 8 of us. Someone's gonna go eventually. There will be a last man standing. There will be there will be a first, obviously. I don't know, I guess I just have a hard time explaining it. I want to see the boys grow up to be the best people that they can be. I want to see them live their life to the fullest. I've seen them have kids already. I want to see them go on to have long careers. I want us all to retire. I want us all to live long enough to get to see our kids graduate together. I want to live long enough to be a 75-year-old COD team. But I'll be honest, I just don't think our odds are that great. I think realistically a lot of us will go before we hit 75. That's a sad thing to think about. In fact, it's kind of crazy to think about some of the stories that we've gone through in the podcast, and there's one in particular that I haven't really shared too well. So I'm going to do my best to share it now and kind of discuss my feelings and how it went and how it could have changed the course of a lot of lives. It could have... I'm going to push this back ever so slightly. I'm so sorry. It could have changed everything. And it was the day my car got stolen, and I'm going to explain that to my best recollection, because it's been a few years. I think it was in the summer. Might have been in the winter. I don't think it was. Maybe it was in the fall. I don't know. Point being, the season's not that important. I remember late one night, I was at my girlfriend's house. Now my wife, by the way. Now my wife. But she was my girlfriend at the time. I was at her house hanging out with her, and she gets a call. There are some children, including her niece, that need to be picked up and watched for other situations out of the control of what was going on. Not really my incident to go into. Not really my incident to explain. It's not that important. in the sense of it changes the story. It's just important that you know that she has these children that she's now watching. So she's watching these children with me, and her brother calls, my brother-in-law calls and says, I'm at this house. I'm outside of Aztec. I just need you to come pick me up. Well, my wife, girlfriend at the time, has these 3 kids that she's watching. She can't just load them up and go. And it was about time for me to go home anyway, so I was like, yeah, I'll go pick them up, bring them back, and then I'll go home. So I left to go get him. And I drove my car out there, park outside of the trailer that he told me to go to, sat outside for a little bit on my phone, waited, get a text from my brother-in-law. Hey man, I need your help. Come here. Come inside. So he comes outside the trailer, waves me in. I get out of my car. I don't think to lock it. Car's still running, I think. He just needs me to help carry some stuff out or something. I don't know. I go inside. Car's unlocked. Car's still running. You're probably thinking that's stupid. You're right. It was stupid. So I go inside and I walk in and I'm in the living room, immediately in the living room. And it's this girl who is furious, upset. And I'm just there. I'm for anyone who knows me, I'm not a fighter. I'm a guy who wants to resolve things pretty quietly before things escalate and get too far out of hand. And so she's upset. These people are in her house. She doesn't want them in her house. She wants them to go. And so my brother-in-law, he's trying to get them out. They're not going out. So the whole point of me going back there is to help him get them out. And because I'm a pretty big guy, I guess. I was a pretty big guy at the time. Still am. So I go back there. And he has a gun. And I go back there. We're just talking to this guy. Having a normal conversation. He asked me for my name. And what sucks is my brother-in-law at the time had already given him my first name. He hadn't given it to him. He had called me to the back room using my first name. So I go back there. He asks me for my name. And at that point I go, if I give him my name, I'm dead. In the sense of my name is affiliated with law enforcement in a certain way. I won't say how. But this guy was definitely he didn't like law enforcement. Did he know the people I know in law enforcement? There's a chance not. But there's a chance, yeah. And so I walk into that room. He asks me for my name. I lie. He knows my first name. He does not know my last name. I gave him a fake name. Fake last name. And he's like, oh, never heard of you. I said, great. And then he goes, kind of look like a cop. And in that moment, I was in fight mode. Because the second that somebody with a gun, who probably doesn't like cops, says you look like a cop, they could decide right then and there to end it all for you. You don't even get a choice. And so immediately I start thinking of how I'm going to be able to convince this guy that I'm not a cop. Because I'm not. I'm not, but I don't have to, like, it doesn't matter that I'm not. If he decides that he believes I am, that's it. So I tell him where I work, tell him what I do. He's like, oh yeah, you can hook me up with some free food when I go in there next time. This is when I worked in the restaurant game. I said, sure. And that, luckily, got him off my case. And then he agreed to leave if he could make some food. He made a sandwich with a god-awful amount of mayo on there. And then he left. And we spent like another minute inside. And then I said, all right, let's go. And I tell my brother-in-law we're getting out of there. And we walk out the door. And I see the two people that just left. They're in the front seat of the car. One's in the passenger seat, one's in the driver's seat. And I see my car back up and take off. And I look at my brother-in-law and I go, this is a sick joke, right? Like, they're going to bring that back. And he goes, yeah, they'll bring it back. They're just messing around. And I see it drive away. Gone. And so I'm like, they're going to come back, right? 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes go by. No car. And I remember calling my wife and telling her what went wrong, what went down. Said I had to call my dad. Called my dad because he was the one that had to come get me. Came and picked me up. And told him, explained everything that happened. Because we have to report it to insurance, obviously. They tried to locate the vehicle via VIN number. They couldn't find it. So, that was it. I went home. Very sad, obviously. The next day, went out to look for my car. And, through some sources. Luckily found it. Because the thing about my car is I had the keys in my pocket, so I had the key fob to the vehicle. Even though the vehicle wasn't locked, they drove away with it, and then when they parked it, they couldn't start it again because they didn't have the keys. I had the keys. So we got an inside source tip, drove up to the house that supposedly had my car. It was hiding behind kind of over a hill. And as soon as we pulled up, I mashed the horn button and the car alarm went off. And that's how I knew where my vehicle was. Located it, recovered it. Checked everything in my car to make sure nothing was stolen. Thankfully, nothing was stolen, at least nothing of value. Did they take something? Probably. Did they take anything of value? Didn't look like it to me. But I got my car back. But the point of that story is, like I said, in the middle of there, I was literally, someone looks at me and goes, you look like a cop. And that changes a lot of things in the sense of, if that guy decides to end me right there, I never get married to my wife. I never have my first daughter. I never have my second daughter. And I don't know how my friends go on. I'm sure they'd go on perfectly normal. But I also don't know how they would react. I'm sure it would fuck them up a little bit. But I'm sure they'd forget me and move on just as quickly. But I wouldn't have any of the coworkers I've ever had. I wouldn't have had a lasting impression on anybody. I never would have met them. They never would have known who I am and the hard worker I've become. In the sense of, I want people to look at me and say, that guy's a hard worker. So I go in, I put my head down, and I get to work every time. And no one's really complained about how hard my work ethics are. Like, I literally push myself to the brink of exhaustion trying to impress people so that they can look at me and say, this guy's a worker, like a good worker, solid worker. We want more people like him. And I don't know where I was going with that. That kind of took me way off track. I'm sorry. But I wouldn't have had a chance to make the difference that I have today. Because that was about, I don't know how many years ago. But so many things could have changed from the outcome of somebody else's choices. And that's the thing, right? I think I'm a pretty nice guy. I'm a pretty good guy. I always want to help people. I've never done anything bad, never been arrested, nothing. But the decision of another bad person could suddenly dramatically change the outcome of my life. I could have died that night. And I didn't. My car got stolen. But I thank God every day that it was just a valueless car compared to my life. And it was even luckier that I got my car back literally the next day. So all in all, a little bit of a traumatic incident, but something we've lived, learned, and moved past. And I hope that you take that with a grain of salt. But I don't know. This has kind of been a really dark, 30-minute episode, but a peek into my life a little bit. So I hope that you understand that. And now, because of that incident, that man's name rings into my head all the time. I won't say it for privacy reasons, and I don't need him coming after me again. But I remember going to court, and I remember his name, and I will always remember it for the rest of my life, because it was something that really traumatized me. And I'm glad that I was able to keep the level head that I did during that moment to not lose it. But I told that story today to my bosses because another guy at my work, his car got stolen, and he got it recovered literally a couple hours later. He was not so fortunate. They had torn his vehicle apart, stolen everything valuable from it, and had then torn up the seats with a knife. And he's a little upset about it. But I had to explain that story to my bosses today, and he goes, well, if somebody decided to end me there, he goes, I'd fight like hell, because I'm going to die anyway. I might as well die trying to stop them. And they go, I understand. You go, had that man raised the gun to me and decided that was it, I would have fought like hell to make sure he went with me. Thankfully, it never came to that, and thankfully, I'm okay. Since then, my brother-in-law went on to get clean. My brother-in-law has changed his life for the better, and he has earned my forgiveness for putting me in a bad situation. Granted, I put myself in that situation by leaving my car unlocked, but for having me get out and being put in front of the gun in the first place, I have forgiven him for that, and I will always give him my respect for it, because he changed his life for the better. So I guess the moral of this whole podcast is never be... How do I word this? The steps that you leave in somebody's life are sometimes bigger than you think. Think about that in the sense of, I keep saying in the sense of, but think about it more as if, like I said, if I die, I don't get married to my wife. She moves on, finds somebody else. They have kids. My daughter doesn't exist. That new kid now exists. My friends move on. Maybe they move on to different places. I already have one friend that lives in Colorado, Grand Junction. I almost said Colorado Springs. I have one guy that lives in Grand Junction. Maybe somebody else goes to Las Cruces. Maybe a bunch of other people move away from this town. But because I'm here, they're here. Not saying that I was a direct influence as to why they're still here, but I'm saying maybe they would have left had I not been here, you know? So even though you might be going through something deep and dark, there's always a light side. You just have to find it. Sometimes it's hidden, and sometimes it's right in front of your face. So if you're having a tough time, first of all, I'm sorry you're going through that rough patch. I'd love to help. Please shoot a direct message to me on Twitter using @BSBrosPod. Or you can, shoot a DM on Twitter. Or you could, I don't know if you can message on TikTok. If you can message on TikTok, message the podcast on TikTok too. I think that's also @BSBrosPod on TikTok. And I'd love to chat. I'd love to find out what you're going through, and I'd love to see if I can help in any way. But aside from individually helping people, the best thing I want to do now is to just continue to host a podcast with my friends, continue to have laughs together, continue to make fun of each other, and continue to tell our stories. Because we've lived it, and I think we're fun guys. But if you don't, you're welcome to move on and go your own separate way. And I don't care if this is all I do every week. If they all eventually get sick and tired of doing it and quit, I won't. I will continue to do stuff like this if I have to. But I don't think that's the case. I think they love to do podcasts just as much as I love to do podcasts, and I hope that it stays that way. And I hope that in the future, when we're old and we can't remember shit, we can look back and we can watch those episodes and remember what we all have gone through together. But I'm not going to quit. I'm never going to stop doing podcasts. I love it so much. It's fun. And I don't care if I do it for 1,000 or 1,000,000 viewers, or even if I just do it for 1 or 2. I'm going to put them out. Consistency is key, and we're going to find a way to fix things in the future so that things come out regularly. Specifically the TikToks. We're going to do some questions of the days, things to look forward to there. And so on and so forth. I think we're going to hold some special guests for a little while and just go back to the 8 Boys for a little bit. Just to kind of have them dick around again. So I want to thank you for coming and watching this episode. If for some reason you made it this far, please hit the like button below if it's on YouTube. If you're on Spotify, give us a follow. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to the channel so that you always know when the newest episode of the BS Bros podcast is live. We tend to try to get these out on Sundays at about 10 a.m. Mountain Time, but it doesn't always go that way. So sometimes, speak of my wife, there she is. Anyway, we try to get those episodes out every Sunday at 10 a.m. Mountain Time, noon Eastern Time, 9 a.m. Pacific Time. I think that's all the main times. Not that Mountain Time is the main time, but you know what I mean. You can also follow us on TikTok and Twitter, or X, now called X, @BSBrosPod. If you don't see the BS Bros Pod logo that you see on whatever platform you're watching on, it's probably not the right account. The X has been a little off lately, but TikTok's been getting updated pretty regularly, but we're going to work on getting things better there. Aside from that, this is the re-record of episode 32. We'll see you next week for episode number 33, which is recorded and done. It just needs to get edited and put together. And like I said, the original episode 32 will come out at some point. I don't know when, but it will. I thank you for taking the time to come and listen to this episode of the podcast. I know, like I said, it's just a solo cast, but it's the best I could do on short notice. So we'll see you guys next time. Peace.